first thing we're going to talk about today is the obligatory Elon Musk update. So those of you who watched the last show, we started off the show talking about how Elon Musk was battling with Brazilian federal government, and Brazil as a country took the move to block Twitter/X in its entirety, and there was a bit of back and forth between the tech billionaire and the country. Fast forward 1 month later, predictably Brazil win, which is really good, because it means that these unaccountable tech CEOs turn out to actually be somewhat accountable, and he's had to row back embarrassingly to get the users back that he lost. He realised that he can survive that. So that's just a mini update on the Brazil X Twitter situation. Power of Silicon Valley billionaires, anything we want to... it's just...
first of all, it's great to see Brazil back on Twitter. They pump out some great content. Amazing gays on Brazilian Twitter, pumping out pop star memes. It's great to see that Elon Musk doesn't have all the power he thinks he has, and that our tech billionaires maybe aren't quite the new gods that they think they are, and that sovereign states can actually fight back against Silicon Valley power. Brazil there's about 19 million people in Brazil using Twitter, and I don't think he realized that he probably can't do without them being on Twitter every day.
I think he probably saw the sign-ups at the other social media platforms ramping up from Brazil and realized that he was losing a market, and that they weren't going to capitulate. So he had
power of a graph trending downwards, probably. But yeah, on the internet, and sort of onto another tech story that caught my eye this week, and I think would be interesting for our viewers, would be, well, firstly we have to introduce the concept of the Internet of Shit. So this era arguably started with the infamous story of a startup called Juicero that raised over 100 million in investor capital a good few years ago now, back in 2017, 2018. But anyway, what it turned out to be is that they were selling a product for about $400 that was connected to the internet, had software, but all it ultimately ended up being was a machine that squeezed a juice bag into a cup, and you paid the $400 for the unit and then a monthly subscription fee. And this started the kind of concept of not like the Internet of Things, which is the idea of all your devices around the home, your fridge, your washing machine, microwave, all being connected to the internet. Really, it's just the Internet of Shit. Reason I wanted to introduce that is that this week it was an update to a story of a car manufacturer called Fisker, which isn't really a car manufacturer. They're called a capital light car company, and that was really that they just designed cars and other people manufactured them. But they were modern EV cars that ran completely on software, and the kind of deal was that you bought the car and you had to buy a monthly subscription service for software updates so that the car would run. It was like, you buy the car, but then you also subscribe to you have a subscription package that allows you to actually drive it. However, obviously, the company didn't go as well as it was meant to go, filed for bankruptcy, and it's been announced this week that no one's swooping in to rescue this company. So you've got lots of people who bought these cars, probably not cheap cars, that are now completely bricked. They are essentially large car-shaped bricks sat on driveways and streets that people can't open, can't get into, can't drive. You definitely can't sell it. And I think it's of interest in itself, but Brad, encroaching subscriptions into everyday lives to things that really don't require a software subscription, worrying. So worrying, so annoying. I think this really started, in my memory, with Microsoft moving to Office 365.
I think that's what started
not being able to buy Word anymore,
right?
Excel
as a separate thing.
Yeah, you used to buy something and own it, and you can't. We move away from owning anything, and there's some things that are useful to pay for on an ongoing basis. I don't mind my Spotify subscription, but what really annoys me is the idea of an ongoing payment for hardware that has the capability to do X thing built in, and then you have to keep paying for it on and on and on anyway. I think it brings in a wider question of ownership
if you buy something, you should own it. But I also think that there's a bigger question surrounding e-waste. If these cars are bricked,
yeah.
they're going to end up in landfill unless something happens.
There's lots of like precious metals in cars.
That these have been mined by in horrific circumstances that we could go into in a completely different show.
On different levels, it is the worst. It's the very worst of the future we could have.
There's no positives.
There's no positives to this stuff. I think the other, some viewers might remember that BMW last year got in trouble because they announced they were going to charge people a monthly fee to use heated seats in their vehicles. So the heated seat, you already bought the feature, you bought the upgrade, but you had to pay a monthly subscription to use it. And they rode back after outcry. But BMW, interestingly, they haven't completely rejected the idea of sort of subscription-based models to owning a car. They're just looking at doing it in a way that people can't avoid. And I think that's really, not that I'm buying a BMW anytime soon, but like it's a worrying trend that companies are now looking at very nefarious ways to squeeze more and more rent out of people that just want to use, everyday products and live their lives without a million subscription services.
I mean, not to say it so quickly into the show, but capitalism is the root of all problems.
Yeah, I did think that was...
It's the sort of pressure for endless growth, the pressure for endless streams of income. If you sell a car with heated seats and you enable the heated seats, you've made that money once. And hopefully if the car works well, you won't make that money again.
I think that what's so egregious about this is that it's literally you're buying... It's not like they're adding value. You're not buying a personalised
withholding value
heated seat consultant to call you and tell you the optimum way of like running your heated seat. It's literally just flicking a bit on and off. You're unlocking something and you're paying a monthly. It's dangerous stuff. I think we need to have some kind of.
It's kind of a mask off moment. I think a lot of businesses now, instead of even pretending to give you value, they're just going to hold things hostage from you and sell them back to you because they can. Competition's harder, especially in established markets. Where are you going to go? Also, you've bought a BMW.
You're stuck with it, yeah.
You're stuck with a BMW. Yeah. You either have heated seats or not is a bit of a
there'll be some bean counters at BMW who are like, right, they've bought the BMW, how much per month can we get them to tolerate on top of MOT and servicing and all that stuff, how much will they tolerate to run all the features in that BMW? It reminded me actually saying Spotify earlier. You were talking about Spotify earlier.
So back onto e-waste, Spotify sold this car thing that they actually called car thing for people who don't have the posh tablets in your... I don't drive.
Like the
posh tablets
in your car,
you
can't drive,
where you play your music.
Yeah.
And it's just Spotify on a small tablet. You plug it into...
People without Bluetooth, basically.
Yeah, and you can play Spotify. And it's a great device. It's low tech. People actually liked it. It didn't make them any money, probably because it's not subscription based. So they only sell it once. So they've decided, right, sod that. We're not doing that anymore. But instead of open sourcing it or supporting it for 3 years or whatever, they're bricking it in December. And then these tiny little pieces of plastic, they're basically just small 3-inch tablets.
But they're going to be completely useless.
On purpose.
That's ridiculous.
They've not reached... And then there's this question of hardware having... It's all well and good designing hardware to last, which is one problem. But if the software backing it isn't being supported long enough, then you're still sending things to e-waste and you're still killing the planet. And it's all because they couldn't make monthly revenue out of this product. They made one-off revenue out of this product.
Short-term thinking.
Yeah.
The shortest of term thinking. That's a good segue because we'll come back to Spotify a bit later in the show with our guest Kim from Sweden. The next story we'll have covered just before we chat to Kim is a bit of good news. The government is currently consulting on whether to reduce the threshold for which unions can seek formal recognition from employers. They're looking to move it from 10%, which is the kind of voluntary recognition, bar, to 2%. What does exactly this mean? Well, it means it would be much easier for unions like the CWU and the Utah branch who organise in a massively unorganised sector like tech. We're talking a million tech employees in the UK, conservative estimate. And there's lots of workplaces in tech that are resistant to organising efforts, sometimes not even resistant, just unaware of what it is. And I think this is good news, and we're watching it very closely along with some of the other proposed changes that the new government are bringing in, because actually I don't think there's a sector that will benefit from it more than tech. The tech sector will hugely benefit from these new changes.
Massively. Bringing it down to 2%. 2% is relatively easy. I mean, where I work, we've started the process for a ICE agreement, which stands for Informing and Consulting Employees. And the minimum threshold for that is 2%, which is why we've gone for it. 2% is a lot easier to get the ball rolling. I think it's amazing, and it'll be great once it's in, and we're definitely keeping our eyes on it. The flip side of that is, until it's legislated in law and in action, we'll probably just keep going as we are and act as if it's not going to happen until it does happen.
Yeah. And I think also, I think we're not the only ones watching this. Obviously, employers are watching this, and their legal consultants are watching this. So I suppose union busting is probably going to get a good ramping up before this comes in, you reckon?
I think what's more interesting is the proposed changes to ballots for mandatory recognition.
And also that their digital ballots would be accepted. Because that's something that's been resisted for
lower obligatory turnout, because frankly, we're still not going to get voluntary recognitions. So most things are going to go to statutory recognition anyway. So I think the lower bar for voluntary recognition will get us some motivation. It'll get us getting to those places.
People to be able to do it on a digital ballot would be easier to organise and encourage a higher turnout. And it's ridiculous we're not able to do something digitally in 2024 like that.
But then getting us to a place where statutory recognition is easier, I think that's where we'll start, touch wood, seeing the recognition agreements start coming in. Like you say, 1 million tech workers. And people from the widest backgrounds. You have people who have come up through trade union families. You have people who don't know what a trade union is. You have people who hate trade unions. And we need to have this sort of broad church as possible.
I think that latter group are quite small. I think the biggest group, I can talk about tech, as I've been in tech for 20 years, but I think when we go and talk to people at conferences, or we talk to people at their employers, or we meet new members, one of the common stories is that they simply don't know what unions are. And even if they did know what unions are in tech, they didn't know that one existed. And so there's still a lot of profile raising for us to do. But I think the new legislation that's coming in, part of it is also encouraging employers to encourage their workers to join unions and exalt the benefits of that, is my reading of it. But even if that isn't the case, it's a great opportunity for us to start that conversation with people that have never had that conversation started. There's no historical industrial background of unions in tech. And so we're kind of starting from a grassroots place. And I think that's a really exciting place for us to be and continue that conversation and shape it and grow that density in this sector.
Right. Up until recently there wasn't. I think, so I joined about 2 years ago now, I think the first time I ever used the ever popular TUC Find a Union tool, nothing came up.
Big up TUC Digital Lab.
From my maths, I think I must have searched that maybe about a year before Utah became part of CWU. And then I just didn't bother searching again for quite a while. So defo profile raising, and defo big up the Find a Union tool.
Yeah, Find a Union tool, it's a good one. But if you're watching this, you probably found your union. And if you haven't, this is the union to join, no brainer.